Okay, so we've moved through the Cyclops and the land of the dead, and now Odysseus returns to Circe's island. So we are going to talk about the Sirens today in our reading, and if it doesn't take too long, I'm going to go on and do Scylla and Charybdis. My dog is going to help me do this because he wants some attention while I'm reading. All right, so I'm starting on page 882. Odysseus returns to Circe's island. The goddess reveals his course to him and gives advice on how to avoid the dangers he will face. The Sirens, who lure sailors to their destruction, the wandering rocks, sea rocks that destroy even birds in flight. Wandering rocks, can't imagine rocks wandering around. I imagine they're quite large, don't you think? The perils of the sea monster, Scylla, and nearby the whirlpool, Charybdis. So he's got a lot that he is going to have to maneuver through successfully to get back home. And the cattle of the sun god, which Tiresias has warned Odysseus not to harm, and that's for another day. As Circe spoke, Dawn mounted her golden throne. Again, we see this beautiful picture of Dawn. We have the rosy-fingered Dawn. We have Dawn mounting her golden throne. So what a beautiful sample of personification there. And on the first rays, Circe left me, taking her way like a great goddess up the island. Well, I made straight for the ship, roused up the men to get aboard, and cast off at the stern. They scrambled to their places by the rowlocks, and all in line dipped oars in the gray sea. So they got up, they got on the boat, they started getting to their places so they could row. But soon an offshore breeze blew to our liking. Well, something nice is happening. Maybe Zeus is showing a little bit of favor for a change. A canvas bellying breeze. What is that? We have the canvas is the sail, right? So the wind is filling up those sails so they don't have to row. A lusty shipmate sent by the singing nymph with sun-bright hair. Could that be Circe? I don't know. Who's sending that breeze? A lusty shipmate. Okay, another piece of personification. How can the breeze be a shipmate? So we made fast the braces and we rested, letting the wind and the steersman work the ship. The crew being now silent before me, I addressed them, sore at heart. Why is he sore at heart? What happened prior that would make him sore at heart? Dear friends, more than one man or two should know these things. Circe foresaw for us and shared with me. So let me tell her forecast. Then we die with our eyes open, and if we are going to die or know what death, we baffle if we can. So here's some foreshadowing. He says, well, we might die, but we're going to die knowing that we're going to die. It's not going to take us by surprise. Sirens weaving a haunting song over the sea, we are to shun. Shun means to leave alone, she said. And their green shore, all sweet with clover. So stay away from them. Yet she urged that I alone should listen to their song. The song is such a temptation that sailors can't resist it. And then so they go to the shore and they die. Therefore, you are to tie me up, tight as a splint. Y'all ever had a splint on your arm? It's very, very tight to keep your bone in place. Tight as a splint, erect along the mast. The mast is the pole that holds the sails. Lashed to the mast, tied to the mast. And if I shout and beg to be untied, take more turns of the rope to muffle me so that I can't get away and that you can't hear me. So I'm thinking they're going to put it around his mouth. I rather dwelt on this part of the forecast while our good ship made time, bound outward down the wind for the strange island of Sirens. Then, all at once, the wind fell, and a calm came over the sea as though some power lulled the swell. Okay, is this again the influence of the gods? The crew were on their feet briskly to furl the sail and stow it. They took down the sail, stowed it away, and then each in place they poised the smooth oar blades and sent the white foam scudding by. Beautiful picture, imagery, scudding by. So they're oaring, they're doing all of the work themselves. I carved a massive cake of beeswax into bits and rolled them in my hands until they softened. No long task, for a burning heat came down from Helios, Lord of High Noon. That's an epithet. I know some of you were wondering about the epithet, Lord of High Noon, something that describes Helios. Going forward, I carried wax along the line and laid it thick on their ears. Why? Well, we know that they cannot hear the siren song because they won't be able to control themselves, and they will be lured to the island. So as we're talking about this, this is all tied into symbolism. So what might the sirens symbolize? That's going to be an assignment for you. They tied me up then, plumb amidships, back to the mast, lashed to the mast, and took themselves again to rowing. So they did exactly what he told them to do. Tie me up to the pole so I can't escape and go to my death with the sirens. Soon as we came smartly within hailing distance, the two sirens, noting our fast ship off their point, made ready, and they sang. They started singing their song. This way, oh, turn your bows, Achaea's glory. So they are using flattery. They're flattering Odysseus. You are Achaea's glory. There's an epithet for you. As all the world allows, more and be merry. We're not going to hurt you. Sweet coupled airs we sing. No lonely seafarer holds clear of entering our green mirror. No one can resist us. Pleased by each purling note, like honey twining from her throat and my throat, who lies a-pining? Sea rovers, here take joy, voyaging onward. There's no fear. You can come and enjoy time with us, and then you're just going to move on your voyage, which is a flat out lie. As from our song of Troy, graybeard and rower boy goeth more learned. So the old and the young will come, and they will just learn things. We're not going to keep you. We're not going to harm you. All feats on that great field in the long warfare, dark days the bright gods willed, wounds you bore there, just talking about what Odysseus has already gone through. So they know these things. Argos, old soldiery, soldiers from Argos, which is a city in ancient Greece, on Troy beach teeming, charmed out of time we see. No life on earth can be hid from our dreaming. So they know everything, and they're luring them. Come to us, and we will just take care of you. We'll teach you things that you never knew. The lovely voices in ardor, which is passion, appealing over the water, made me crave to listen. It's Odysseus talking. And I tried to say, untie me to the crew, jerking my brows, but they bent steady to the oars. They can't hear him. They can't hear the sirens. Why? They have wax in their ears. Then Perimedes got to his feet, he and Eurylochus, so two of the oarsmen, and passed more line about to hold me still, to make sure that there was no way that he could escape. And so all rowed on until the sirens dropped under the sea rim, and their singing dwindled away. So there was obedience there. My faithful company, they're not always faithful, are they? My faithful company rested on their oars now, peeling off the wax that I had laid thick on their ears, and then set me free. So they got through that easily, right? Because everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. So again, think about what the sirens might symbolize in today's world. But scarcely had that island, I'm going to go on, this might be long, I'm going to go on. But scarcely had that island faded in blue air than I saw smoke and white water with sound of waves in tumult. What is tumult? Something's tumultuous. It's churning. It's almost warlike. A sound the men heard. They don't have wax in their ears anymore. And it terrified them. Oars flew from their hands. The blades went knocking wild alongside till the ship lost way. They let go of the oars. They're terrified. With no oar blades to drive her through the water, they're not going to go where they're supposed to go. Well, I walked up and down from bow to stern, trying to put hearts into them, trying to give them courage, right? He knows what's ahead. He's listened to Circe, so he knows what's ahead. Standing over every oarsman, saying gently, okay, so now think about Odysseus as a leader, and is he the hero, and what kind of a leader is he? So he's coming and he's trying to buoy their spirits, trying to make them calm and to feel better. So he's not giving them a big pep talk. He's really being gentle and calm and quiet. Friends, have we never been in danger before this? More fearsome is it now than when the Cyclops penned us in his cave? What power he had! Did I not keep my nerve and use my wits to find a way out for us? So think about, have you ever faced a challenge? I mean, I do just every day with technology, and I think, well, let's remember the last time I faced something like this. Didn't I figure it out, or I was able to find somebody to help me figure it out? So that's what he's saying to them. Just kind of think back to when we faced a challenge before and we got out of it. So trust me, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to abandon you. We're going to get out of this too. Now I say, by hook or crook, this peril too shall be something that we remember. It's going to be in the past. We're going to get through it. Heads up, lads. We must obey the orders as I give them. So you got to follow what I say if we're going to be safe. Get the oar shafts in your hands and lay back hard on your benches. Hit these breaking seas. Zeus, help us pull away before we founder. Founder means to like crash onto the rocks or onto the beach. You at the tiller who directs, the tiller is what gives direction. Listen and take in all that I say. The rudders are your duty. Keep her out of the combers and the smoke. Steer for that headland. Watch the drift, or we fetch up in the smother and you drown us. So what is he saying? You've got to direct us. If you let go of the oars and we let go of the rudder, then nothing directs us. And we're going to end up getting carried by the waves onto the beach and smashed onto the beach, and we're going to die. That was all, and it brought them round to action. So they just needed somebody to encourage them and say, here's the job you need to do. Just do this and we're going to be safe. But as I sent them on towards Scylla, I told them nothing, as they could do nothing. So he's not telling them about, here's our monster on one side with her 6 arms, and she's going, with each arm, she's going to snatch up a man and eat him. On the other side, we're going to have Charybdis, which is this yawning gorge that swallows seawater and the ships and everything along with them. So he's not going to tell them that. Why? Because they would have dropped their oars again in panic. He says it right there. To roll for cover under the decking. So we can't have them cowering under the deck. They've got to do their job, and we don't know who's going to die, but we do know that 6 men are going to die. Circe's bidding against arms had slipped my mind, so I tied on my cuirass and took up 2 heavy spears, then made my way along to the forelock. Don't know why she told him not to have arms, and we'll see if that plays a part later. Thinking to see her first from there, so he's looking for Scylla the monster. And he calls her the monster of the gray rock. There's another epithet for you for Scylla. Harboring torment for my friends. I strained my eyes upon the cliffside veiled in cloud, but nowhere could I catch sight of her. So he's watching for her to do the best he can to keep anyone from getting taken by her. And all this time in travail is really hard work, sobbing, gaining on the current, so they are making some headway. We rode into the strait. Scylla to port, and on our starboard beam, Charybdis, dire gorge of the salt sea tide. There's another epithet for you. Dire gorge of the salt sea tide is Charybdis. So we have danger on each side, and they have to maneuver this very narrow passage between them. More symbolism for you there, guys. Think about that. So we're going to try to decide, what does Scylla symbolize? What does Charybdis symbolize? By heaven, when she vomited, now we're talking about Charybdis, all the sea was like a cauldron seething over intense fire when the mixture suddenly heaves and rises. So here we have another simile. This is a longer simile, right? So this could count as a Homeric simile. All the sea is like a cauldron. What is that? A cauldron is like a big pot seething over intense fire, which we could be like an oxymoron. So how can the sea be fire Something to think about. But we have this cauldron of seawater that's seething, and then the mixture heaves and rises and spews out. The shot spume soared to the landside heights and fell like rain. So she's heaving this water out. But when she swallowed the seawater down, we saw the funnel of the maelstrom, heard the rock bellowing all around, and dark sand raged on the bottom far below. So she then swallows the sea. 3 times a day she does this. Huge swallows of the sea, and they could be swallowed up by this monster. My men all blanched, which simply means they turned white against the glooms. You can see the contrast. Our eyes were fixed upon that yawning mouth in fear of being devoured. And then, so they've got that they're worried about, Scylla made her strike. So their attention is on Charybdis, and while their attention is on Charybdis in fear, Scylla makes her move, whisking 6 of my best men from the ship. I happened to glance aft at ship and oarsmen and caught sight of their arms and legs dangling high overhead. He's witnessing this. There's nothing he can do. His men are caught up, one in each of Scylla's arms, and killed and destroyed. Voices came down to me in anguish. These are the voices of his men, calling my name for the last time. So imagine what Odysseus is feeling. A man surf casting on a point of rock for bass or mackerel, whipping his long rod to drop the sinker and the bait far out, will hook a fish and rip it from the surface to dangle wriggling through the air. This is another picture. This is not a typical simile, but I would call it as a Homeric simile. So these were borne aloft in spasms toward the cliff. This is what's happening to his men. It's like they're being hooked on a fishing line. She ate them as they shrieked there in her den, in the dire grapple, reaching still for me. They are trying to get away from her. And deathly pity ran through me at that sight. Far the worst I ever suffered, questing the passes of the strange sea. Why do you think that this is the worst pity has ever suffered? Why is this worse than watching his men get eaten by the Cyclops? I wonder why that is. So think about that. We rode on. The rocks were now behind, Charybdis too, and Scylla dropped astern. So they successfully maneuvered through all of these possible disastrous situations and monsters, and they were successful. They listened to Odysseus and did what he asked them to do, and they lost 6 more men. I'm going to stop there, and next we will tackle the cattle of the sun god and see if his men continue to be obedient, because what do they say? Don't touch the cattle of the sun god. So we'll wait and see if that happens. And what do you think? With their history, do you think they'll be able to resist? All right, thank you for joining me. I will see you again soon. Bye.